The story opens at a large roadside motel where a young woman named Sophie worked. Many guests who stayed there would often bother her and treat her poorly. Despite working hard, Sophie didn't earn enough to live comfortably. Because of this, Sophie sometimes made choices that weren't considered respectable by society. She was strikingly beautiful, and most of the guests at the motel wanted to spend time with her. Among the regular guests was a local troublemaker named Zira. He too was interested in Sophie, but his way of showing it was by trying to intimidate her for his own amusement. But Sophie was not the type to be scared easily. She had one rule: whoever paid her the most got her time and attention. Frustrated by Sophie's confidence, Zira handed her a large sum of money just to get his way. That night belonged to him. The owner of the motel was a man named William. He was aware of Sophie's choices but never interfered because her presence brought more business to the motel. Meanwhile, on the outskirts of town, we are introduced to an older man and his companion. The older man's name was Bowman, and his loyal companion was Harry. The two were traveling toward the big city, hoping to get an audience with the king. Bowman had a rather eccentric personality. He saw himself as a courageous warrior and spent most of his time telling Harry stories about his bravery. Harry, who respected Bowman, always listened carefully. On their way to the city, they saw a windmill for the first time in their lives. Bowman, thinking it was some sort of enemy war machine, immediately grabbed his weapon and attacked it, only to fall flat on the ground. Not giving up, he charged at it again, convinced he was fighting an enemy machine. Harry stood behind him, watching in silence. Bowman was caught up in the blades of the windmill, but still kept swinging his weapon. After falling again, Bowman told Harry that if he had better weapons, he would have destroyed the enemy machine. Harry carefully helped him back on his feet. Just then, they noticed a nearby motel, the same one where Sophie worked. Since nightfall was approaching, they decided to stay there for the night. When they reached the door, William, the motel owner, asked for their names. Harry proudly stepped forward and introduced himself as the loyal companion of the great Bowman, a man whose bravery was known across the land. He even claimed that the king himself admired Bowman's heroic deeds. Impressed by this, William warmly welcomed them inside. As soon as Bowman stepped into the lobby, he stumbled again. Harry and William quickly helped him. William then went to tend to their horses, while Bowman began telling the motel guests about his legendary battles. When Bowman saw Sophie, he was captivated by her beauty and couldn't stop staring. Sophie, however, just wanted to finish her work. Bowman tried to talk sweetly to her, but Sophie ignored him and kept doing her job. Bowman followed her around like a love-struck fool. He had fallen for her at first sight. The other guests teased Sophie, saying she had enchanted the old man. Later, Harry approached Sophie and handed her a letter from Bowman. Since Sophie couldn't read, she asked Harry to read it aloud, but Harry also didn't know how to read. Harry explained that the letter contained words of affection from Bowman. Sophie quietly kept the letter with her, but showed no real interest. When Harry returned to Bowman, he handed him Sophie's towel as a token. Bowman, delighted, placed it on his forehead as if it were a crown. As night fell, a group of mysterious strangers arrived at the motel, dressed in black and covering their faces. Bowman, who was outside at the time, was startled by them. They told him they were searching for the great warrior Bowman. Before Bowman could respond, William came out and pointed toward him, saying, "There he is." The strangers bowed before Bowman and pleaded for his help. Among them was a young woman who explained that a witch had turned her brother into stone and only Bowman could save him. Bowman went to look at the stone man and solemnly declared that he could cure him, but the medicine was hidden in a dangerous place. He promised to retrieve it for them. The strangers were overjoyed by Bowman's words. Sophie, standing nearby, watched the entire scene unfold. When Bowman retired for the night, the strangers removed their masks, and to Sophie's shock, the stone man suddenly stood up, completely fine. It turned out the young woman's name was Maryam, and she was there with her husband. The whole group had only come to mock Bowman, and after laughing about it, they left the motel. Sophie went back to her work, but the men at the motel began bothering her again. Sophie firmly told everyone to leave her alone. At that moment, Zira grabbed Bowman's letter from her and began reading it aloud, mocking Sophie even more. Angered, Sophie warned him to stop, but Zira reminded her of their deal. She still owed him a night. Sophie told him to wait. Later that evening, Bowman was praying, asking for Sophie's love. Sophie eventually came to him and explained that there was a big age difference between them. He was over 60 and she was just 30. But Bowman didn't take her words seriously. He didn't see age as an obstacle. Soon after, Zira returned, furious that Sophie had not kept her word. He began to assault her in anger. This enraged Bowman, who attacked Zira with his weapon, injuring him. Zira immediately called his men to retaliate. Soon Bowman was surrounded. Harry joined the fight, and together with Sophie, they managed to overpower Zira and his companions. Their victory was short-lived because William arrived, furious that the motel had been damaged during the fight. He asked them all to leave. Sophie carefully tied a bandage on Bowman's wounded head before he left. The next morning, Bowman and Harry set out again toward the city. Along the road, they encountered Sophie. Bowman asked why she was there. Sophie explained that because of Zira's complaints, William had thrown her out of the motel. She broke down crying, and Bowman tried to comfort her. Suddenly, they were surrounded by royal soldiers. The soldiers asked Bowman to identify himself, and when he did, they ordered him to return home. Bowman refused, ready to fight them. The soldiers prepared for battle, carrying shields with mirrored surfaces that disoriented Bowman. They mocked him, calling him crazy, which agitated him even more until he collapsed from exhaustion. Sophie tried to help him, but she was stopped. Harry was heartbroken seeing his friend in this state. These soldiers had actually come with Maryam's husband. Maryam, the same woman from the motel, was also there, laughing at Bowman again. Bowman lost consciousness and was taken back to his home. When he awoke, his daughter Maryam and her son were standing next to him. It was revealed that this was the same Maryam from the motel. She had hidden her face before so Bowman wouldn't recognize her. Maryam's husband was also present, along with Harry. The truth was revealed. Bowman was not actually a soldier. He was just an elderly man who had become delusional over time, living in his own fantasy world where he believed he was a brave warrior. Harry had been asked to stay with him by Bowman's children, so he wouldn't wander off. Maryam had staged the stone man scene to trick Bowman into coming home. When he refused, her husband had brought him back by force. Sophie, who had followed them, now understood the truth about Bowman. Bowman apologized to Sophie for bothering her and wished her a better future, but Sophie had now truly fallen for him and didn't want to leave. Still, Bowman gently asked her to go. Soon after, Bowman's health worsened and he passed away peacefully. In the final scene, Sophie was heartbroken, mourning the man she had come to love. And with that, the story came to an emotional end.